Welcome to DIY IT. We're talking this week about cloud computing. So let's go around the room, do introductions again as we jump into this episode.
Austin Ringland, System Administrator.
Dwayne Taylor, VCIO.
Jason Null, Vice
No,
President.
I'm Jason Null.
No.
You could be Jason Null today.
Adam Ringland, Operations Manager.
You should have said VCIO and been Nate.
Yeah, I could.
No. So, and I'm Jason Null, Vice President, MIS Solutions. So, welcome once again. So, we got a host of different people in here, from techs to management to our VCIO office, which is our Chief Information Officer, virtually.
Yep.
So, cloud computing, I think this is a huge change in IT. Yeah, over the last, we've talked, and again, several of us have been in IT longer than others, which is one reason I wanted you here, Austin. I hate to say, sound younger perspective. I don't think I'm that old, but in IT, I feel like I am. Doing this for 25 years,
100%.
it has changed so much. We went from single processors in computers to multi-core. Things have changed so much, from on-premise to obviously what today is, which is the cloud.
Yep.
The cloud, it's changed everything, right?
Yep.
Cost savings, scalability, reliability, it has changed how we deploy what we sell.
Yeah, we'll think about from our current basket of partners. You guys have been here, longer than anyone else. How many physical servers have you seen gone away, or new partners come on that they're like, sir, a physical server?
Yeah, to even step back further, we started with partners that had 32 physical servers.
Right.
And then we virtualized those.
Right, down to three physical
and now,
with 32 virtual.
Now we're getting rid of the 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're just finding better ways to make it scalable, uptime, not have that dependency on the location.
Oh, I think that's right there the key. When you look at Azure or you look at AWS,
Right.
there is the benefit. Literally, they stay up all the time.
Yeah, correct.
Nowadays,
you're not dependent upon that location, have the internet up, so you've got to tunnel into that, and
Power.
you got people, power,
Yep.
internet, all kinds of things. So,
I think honestly, before COVID, cloud was a buzzword to a lot of small business owners and decision makers in small businesses. But when they realized, like, oh my gosh, we can't be here. What are we dependent upon? What are we losing now? That because we're beholden to this physical building.
yeah.
And I think that has helped, honestly, not only in the moment so they could work, but making them think proactively, like, oh man, it really is next gen and what the world's going to look like. And if now everyone that wants jobs after COVID needs to be able to work from home, they're like, I have to be able to work from home 3 days a week or I'm not taking your position.
Yep.
Well, now they're able to do that. It's
more efficiently.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need physical hardware, like all this stuff
Right.
at each person's house.
It just reduces the dependencies.
Yeah, we took a lot of our clients, and I think the biggest thing that changed computing was moving email basically to Office 365 or even Gmail and the G Suites for partners. That was huge, right?
That was really
Yeah,
the first
getting the
phase of
on-premise.
cloud.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first phase, first stage.
Yeah,
And,
and we took partners kicking and screaming into it, right? Nobody understood it. We were showing them cost savings. We were showing this. And when you go back to what you just said about COVID, we shut down, right? And our partners shut down. But our partners didn't miss a beat.
Right.
No one
They were already.
No one knew the lights were off here.
Yeah, and our partners, they went home and all their stuff worked still because majority of their systems were already in the cloud. They were already able to work quickly remotely, quickly have the tool sets that they need, quickly continue to do business.
Yep.
And that was huge.
Even on the other hand, like, our partners never even know if we're working from home.
Correct.
Because
That's true.
everything
They-
we have is all in the cloud.
The day that they shut us down with the state, no one knew the lights were off here.
Yep.
You called and
You
no
got
one
some,
knew.
Yep.
Well, and people can't tell the difference between babies crying and our techs crying. It sounds the same in the background.
Very similar.
Are you at home? No, I'm at work. That's just Austin crying again. It sounds like a baby scream, right? So, yeah. Cloud computing, I like going back to what you just said, too, a little bit ago and kind of rolling back to where this started. And, it did start with virtualization, right?
Absolutely.
Virtualization is what made the cloud what it is today because virtualization was the biggest piece to make cloud computing, whether it's Docker containers, whether it's actually VMs, Hyper-V, whatever it is, that scalability to build these massive data centers. If we were still doing physical one-to-one servers, this would never have worked.
No.
When we started moving from, 32 physical servers on site, massive power constraints for it, massive air conditioning systems,
battery backup,
all that stuff,
just
massive amounts of
racks,
switching, racks, dedicated rooms, to scaling that down to 3, to even today where those places might have one physical box running just a few VMs, and those few VMs just don't make sense in the cloud because it's just not cost. It doesn't make sense cost-wise.
right.
I mean, a lot of it, this has shown us is like less is more. In an instance, I mean, we have like one of our nursing homes where every single location had a server at one point.
Yeah, we had 7 locations, 7 servers, 7 AD controllers, and backup domain controllers,
and having that many, like that much hardware, your redundancy is like just gone.
Right.
Like, I mean, there's no, like, if your server's down for that location, it's just toast.
Yeah.
And
we leveraged Microsoft for that, right? So they're running Office 365, and they're not only running it for email, they're taking advantage of SharePoint and other services in OneDrive to be able to eliminate, now we have Azure AD, right, integration, so you got, servers in the cloud for Active Directory if you need it, and then we're running SharePoint for your file and, sharing, and then email obviously is in cloud. That's huge. And then you add all the extra pieces to it, Teams, so you have that communication, and, you have, what's the other piece in there, that stream piece where you have internal YouTube for the company. There's all kinds of pieces inside of Office 365, and we see partners only using like this much of it, and the platform is huge, and most of it is already there, ready to be used.
One thing I really love that Austin and his team are doing right now to be more proactive is, all right, let's look at each of our partners that have a domain controller and then a backup domain controller, and it's all on-prem, and it's like, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense to take their entire environment up to Azure, but let's make sure that we get a backup domain controller up in Azure so that they can still, do the things they need to do.
People can authenticate too.
Correct.
If that location's down.
Right. Or if they're using a phone system on-prem, that's one thing that has to get up in the cloud. In case the location goes down, well, you can still take all your calls and make all your calls. And yeah, it's been a really good initiative that they've had, and I think there's going to be more to come on that. Think about the actual physical servers that have come in over the past year for you, and the amount of actual virtual servers that you're installing. It's not that many anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even a few years ago, like if we knew someone's server was kind of getting older and we're like, hey, let's replace this, like our first conversation was like, okay, well, what server do you want? Yep. Now my first conversation with him is, can we just get rid of it?
Yeah. Let me find out. Let me go look. And I'm like, well, we don't need this. We don't need to spend. We don't need the capital expense.
Right.
It's just
those are the challenges we face today.
Absolutely.
Now it wasn't like we just replaced the server, let's project for storage growth and how many CPUs and how much RAM do we need and how many VMs are we going to run. Now it's, okay, what is it going to take to get it in the cloud? Are we going to have to do a data migration? Are we going to have some type of software that we need to put in the cloud?
Yep.
Does the vendor have a piece of software?
Right.
Yeah,
if you're using something that is on-prem, maybe 5 years ago that vendor didn't have a cloud solution.
Right.
Now it's rare that you find one that doesn't.
Yeah, I honestly don't.
And if they don't,
right,
they won't be around much longer.
Correct.
Right.
Adapt or die.
Right.
Correct.
Adapt or perish.
And I think for a small business, as a small business owner, you look at your cost, right? In the past, we had huge upstart costs. You're looking maybe $20,000, $30,000 to get a server in. Like when we talk about small business server back in the past, right? You're running Exchange on it, SharePoint, Active Directory, file and print. You're buying a pretty decent server. You're spending probably $10,000 to $15,000 for that. And today, you can have all that functionality, and you only have 5 people. And even if you went with like E3s with Microsoft, right? That's $20 a person.
Right.
That's nothing.
Yep.
That's a monthly. It's
budgetable.
It is very budgetable. You're not like, oh, I got this upfront cost. I got to buy all these computers. No, it's just like my business is up and running instantly. And then you want phones, you can add phones in very quickly.
Yep.
And, you can take it a step further. Other benefits of being in the cloud are, when you had a physical server or a virtual server and it had an OS on it, you were stuck. You were bound to that OS until its end of life. So you would either run it out or you'd have to buy the new one and upgrade it.
Yep.
So all those costs associated with that are all built in.
Correct. Yeah. You forget about that. Like all of a sudden, Server 2012 is ending now, right?
Right.
We've got to upgrade, and I got to spend another. I have this many CPUs running. I need this many licenses.
Got to buy cows.
Yeah.
Everything.
Next thing you know, I have another $3,000 expense.
Right.
Just to keep this thing upgraded and keep it running, and and we talk about power. We talk about all the other things. People's power footprints have lowered big time in office spaces because they're not powering all of this equipment.
Ours went down dramatically here in this office.
Oh yeah, when we moved everything that we had basically into the cloud,
Yep.
It made a big difference for us.
Absolutely.
I mean, it makes us be able to be flexible and allow our guys to work from home. So that you
6 years ago, we were buying a full-size rack or putting a full-size rack in, AC units. None of that stuff's inexpensive. Now we've got a telco rack with some switches and firewall, and
Yeah, I mean, I think about like some of the first cloud pieces that I started using, and this was back before I started using like Microsoft. I was using DNA Mail to host email in the cloud back then, and I jumped on the Meraki train very early on.
Correct.
When Meraki was still its own company, and looking at what I was supporting traditional Cisco, right? I had to go try to telnet into something. I had to put presence on site, trying to do this, trying to do upgrades. And when I saw Meraki and the ability to manage from my desk all of the APs, and that was huge. That was like 2010 maybe,
right?
2011. I'm trying to remember when Cisco bought them because I remember the day I cried. I know obviously Cisco has kept it as a great company. Pricing has changed. Some of the functionality kind of went away. I mean, in 2010, I had 10 gig switches with 10 gig, ports on them, and then they got rid of those,
Of course.
What was that? Like the MS? I can't remember the model numbers of those, but it was like the 40 or whatever. And next thing you know, Cisco comes out with the MS-120 and it's gigabit, and you're like, wait, I lost my speed. But Cisco has done a good job at keeping it going, and we've watched that integration go into all their other products.
And they've adapted
Correct.
a lot of the Meraki
into proper Cisco, right. And that was one of the first.
No more console cables.
Yeah,
right.
That's a first cloud platform right there.
Right.
I wasn't hosting servers there. Obviously, Meraki's doing it, but all of my network gear was available to manage all of my partners
wherever you were.
Yeah,
wherever you were.
Then DNA Mail, I was using that. Got bought by Sherwood, I think it was, out in France, and that went horrible. And I jumped into BPAWS and Live at EDU for our education clients, and then that's rolled obviously into Office 365, which now rolled into Microsoft 365, and next year it'll be Office Microsoft 365 times
Office
2
/365.
Yeah. So, but those are platforms today that have changed the market, has changed the footprint of everything.
Yep.
We talk about servers on-prem, right? And now all of our cloud systems, or all of our phone systems, are hosted cloud-based, right? We used to build servers on-prem, right? Obviously, internet goes down, power outage, your phones are down. We started leveraging that several years ago to make sure that clients didn't have.
Another benefit of it too is for disaster recovery. If something was to happen to your physical server, or your building caught fire or something. I mean, hopefully you've got really good backups and you can restore to something eventually, but in this instance, you'd have everything that you needed.
Yeah. And it's cool because they're constantly maintaining it too, right? Yep. So we talked about having to buy upgrades. They just upgrade it. Right. They add new pieces. All of a sudden you got, you're using Outlook and you look up and they're like, there's something new in it. And you're like, oh, cool, new feature.
You don't have to buy the new version of Office. You get it.
No,
the cost is all that's built in.
Right. Yeah, and we're even seeing, yes, we have partners that are all cloud. We have partners that are, I'd say there's nobody that's on-prem only. So I think the other side of that is hybrid, right? So they have some on-prem and they have some cloud.
That's most of ours.
I think, it's either that or it's all cloud. I don't think there is anybody, I can't think of any partner we have. Of course, we don't deal with government, so yay. But that has any requirements where something has to be on-prem.
Right.
The biggest reason we have things on-prem is cost, right?
100%.
Or the software that the partner needs to run. That's the only reason why we have something on-prem.
Right. Yeah,
and it may not run well out of Azure or AWS.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely
Some limitations.
I can think of some that for sure.
Connectivity issues, speed issues. But we're watching, that's the big thing is all of a sudden everybody's got gigabit connections, right? At their offices. I mean, like 3 years ago, it was like 250 we were lucky, but as everybody's gone to the cloud, everybody needs bigger pipes. I mean, even our firewalls now, we're like looking at our firewalls going, wow, we're hoping Cisco starts revving all their models because we only need a small footprint for some of the models, and they're only they max out at 300 megs.
Yeah.
But we need gigabit connections because every small business has gig connections, and I'm not going out and buying an MX 400
$30,000 firewall, right?
Gig connections, it doesn't make sense. I want an MX67. If you want to call it an MX
75.
Well, I don't want to say 75. That's still even a little bit big. I mean, it's still that small form factor, but the 67 should be able to do gig connections.
It should.
And we're doing dual gig connections at most places now.
Yep.
Almost every one of our partners, if we are not running servers on site, we are running dual internet to be able to have that high availability. So if Spectrum is down, Charter,
because
or
that's
CBTS,
your only issue that you're going to have is your internet being down. When you're cloud-based, you must have the internet. So you must have two.
Yep.
Cool thing is if your office internet is down or there's a power outage at your office, you can send your workers home.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's why
everybody hotspot.
Yeah. Or that. I mean, and that's why I don't see our partners. Cloud has changed what they're using at the desk too, right? We don't see partners running physical desktops that much anymore, because they are in a mobile environment. They are allowed to work anywhere, anytime, right? And the cloud has given them that ability.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing them using laptops, because if the power goes out here,
pick up my
just go home and work. Why stay at the office and hope the power's going to go on? You can get all your work done at home because you have obviously power at home and internet. If not, run down to the library, and it has definitely changed it. The cool thing I think too is how we have learned to adjust to cloud. And it took me a while. I remember when virtualization came out, it took me everyone, and you're kind of trying to grasp this, one thing, now it does 8, and how you carve it up like a piece of pie, and the segmenting, and then cloud comes out, and then Azure, and then we start looking at running servers in the cloud and getting smart, minimizing our CPU usage. When you have on-premise, you just buy the biggest, baddest thing you had. Who cares? It had 256 gigs of RAM and it had 18 CPUs. But cloud, you pay for that, right?
Right. And we're even tweaking with some of our partners.
Right.
That during off hours, let's shrink it.
Correct.
During not busy season, let's shrink some things.
Right, because it's almost like it's almost metered as if I start thinking about like electricity.
100%.
Or leaving the water running. It's like it's ticking away. So if your peak hours and you only need this box between 9 and 5, you literally can turn it off, and then the meter stops.
Scale down, scale up, and with just a few clicks.
We have a partner who is a seasonal, right? And we actually ramp the phone system up during peak season to handle the call volumes,
right?
And as the season ends and it goes into the winter for them,
right,
we ramp it down, and there's a spike in cost for them, but it then drops back down. Instead of running something that's massive all of the time and it's consuming all these resources, we don't need to do that anymore. So I think those are kind of neat things that we didn't do on premise.
Yeah,
it just ran all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a big benefit of like pretty much anything in the cloud is I feel like truthfully it just runs better than it would on-prem. Like you run into like less issues, like even like simple things of a program you have to install on a machine versus just going to a web browser and opening it. That's a step that we can skip. The user doesn't have to deal with that. Yep. We don't have to deal with it. There's not going to be a breaking point. If the website's down, the website's down.
Correct.
There's nothing wrong with your program.
Yep.
Even from servers, like when we put a server in Azure, I feel like it just runs. Like there's really there's not a whole lot of like maintenance on it. I mean, obviously keeping it patched and you're in your backups and all that good stuff, but there's not a whole lot of like faulty issues with putting servers in Azure.
Yeah, to your point, it just eliminates all your fail points. Like literally so many fail points. Yeah, even though the software isn't truly, physical but it's a program that has to be installed on a computer that can become corrupted. And yeah, like you said, a website's not going to become corrupted. Someone just messed something up on the back end. And,
right.
Whoop.
And I mean, it covers us with being an MSP as well, because like if someone's email's down, it's like, well, Microsoft's having issues. I mean,
Right.
The whole world's down right now.
There's bigger problems.
The world is down.
Yeah.
That is definitely true. I mean, and it doesn't happen very often. We see regional issues with Microsoft, and even Azure or AWS. Everybody kind of has their issues, but still, in the end, massive data centers, massive redundancies. They can swing from one region to another region, and do all kinds of stuff. We get zero-day exploits. They are able to fix it like that. Right. They're not hoping everybody patches this Exchange server and fixes this zero-day exploit. They can just call across the board. Yeah. It's so nice.
Yep.
And then we don't have to patch. We don't have to. There's so much maintenance that's been taken away from us.
Exactly.
Which I love, because I remember having information stores crashing, running IS and TEG for 18 hours, praying mailboxes come back. Information stores mount. We don't have that. I mean, the guys at Microsoft may have it. I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, we don't have to deal with it.
They get paid for that. That's great.
Sweating.
Correct. And so, something else about cloud, I kind of want to ask you guys what you think about this, is what do you think about the security of it? Obviously, before it was on-prem, right? It's harder to hack into, maybe not. What do you guys think about the security of cloud?
It's almost scarier, kind of, because you don't control as much. Like obviously, we have virtual firewalls up in some of our instances too, but even the ones that we don't, I mean, they have their own Windows firewall, and you can tweak that kind of stuff. But I would say if a Microsoft data center got hacked again, we got some bigger issues.
Well, and I talked to a lot of our partners and our prospects about, when you had your on-premise Exchange server, they had to find you. The hackers had to find you. Mm-hmm. Now they've got one place to go, office.com.
Yep.
And then that just leads you into the next conversation of, here's while they've only got one place to go, how we still keep them out.
Yep.
And that's through, MFA and,
correct.
Just there's increased security.
Right.
When the hackers are just pounding away. And then it goes down to user awareness and, phishing training and just making sure that people are aware, because the end users are the weakest links.
Yeah, because honestly, if your Microsoft 365 portal got breached, then the next thing a hacker's going to do is in the same browser go portal.azure.com.
Right. And now he's got servers, and so we do a very good job here. I just want to say the team does a very good job of making sure that we've got all the doors closed and all the locks engaged.
Well, because we're running MFA for everything. We're making sure that we have conditional access running. That's what's cool too. In the past, if you wanted to add a security product, you'd have to go out and get the security
probably
product.
Get an appliance to do it.
Yeah,
right?
You have to buy something, you're putting it in, you're getting it up. Literally, if you want to increase your security in Microsoft, you can just go out and buy a new license and take it to the next level.
Right.
Take it to the next level, and it's on instantly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's out of your hands a little bit more. I mean, it's always kind of up to Microsoft. I mean,
right.
If they get breached, then we're all breached. But
Amazon.
But I mean, right. But I mean, like, the security features of being in the cloud are much stronger than anything that's going to be on premise.
I agree.
We never really knew when, there'd be somebody pounded on your terminal server that was open to the outside through the firewall unless you were sitting there watching the logs of failed login.
Correct.
Or and now with the conditional access and all the security features that you can turn on the back end, you can know right away.
Yep.
It's like, hey, you were in Cincinnati 30 minutes ago, and now you're in LA. Like, how did that happen?
Correct.
Can't.
You mentioned just kind of pivoting. You mentioned AWS. Obviously, being a Microsoft partner, we're heavy Azure.
Yeah.
We do have a couple partners at AWS, but they were kind of AWS before we took them on, and we don't really manage those for them because they're like proprietary stuff that's in them. I guess I'll ask you, Dwayne, do you have, like, when you're meeting with people, are they ever asking you, like, hey, what do you guys ever think about AWS versus Azure or any other cloud solutions?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I don't really get a lot of AWS, like you said, like the partners that we do, or the people that I talk to, are already in AWS, and they're there for a reason, because they're developers, or they're software, programmers, and that's just where they decided to start before they called an MSP to say, how should I do this?
Right.
And then, but I don't get a lot of questions.
I mean, because those are really the two big dogs. Would you steer someone? Yeah. Would you steer anybody else to another cloud provider for something like that, hosting?
Possibly. I mean, it depends. I mean, 5-6 years ago, we were using other providers. It was, whether it was GoDaddy. I can think of a dozen other companies that provided
Intermedia, anybody.
Yeah, they did all these services, and they had this stuff. Microsoft and Amazon have done a good job about advertising, getting their names out there.
I guess Google to a point,
yeah, too. Well, yeah. And hosting their environments and having these massive, they've spent lots more money than some of the smaller people that were.
They've gone Pac-Man.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they're massive, and they're, to get into their data centers are just crazy.
Right.
Like, you're not getting servers. In the past, we could have somebody pull up, break the window, walk into the data center, load up all the servers, and drive away.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
I'm just saying, based on reputation, though.
Yeah.
Like those are the big ones that if someone's asking our opinion.
At the end of the day, that's just cloud hosting. Yeah. So I mean, it's one's AWS, one's Microsoft. I'm partial to the Microsoft because they offer more than just a cloud station.
That's the main
cloud
thing. I mean,
cloud hosting.
You can have everything's a one-stop shop. I mean, like, why would we have a partner that's in your VMs are over here, but your emails over here?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't. Your files are here. Like, it doesn't make any sense for us.
Because we want them to be down all at one time.
Right.
When something really bad happens.
Well, and Microsoft's made it easy for us to build.
There's so much geo-redundancy.
We can go right from here into Azure, into this, and have it all in one ecosystem.
Right.
Versus having to jump out to go something else.
It's a single pane of glass.
It is. It is. It's a support thing. You also know the Microsoft environment because it's very familiar.
Well, and it's also, like, it helps not having to teach end users about 4 different kinds of software, 4 different solutions.
Here's where you go for your email. Here's where you go to clock in.
You can have one screen with everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I definitely think in the end, to get back to the original question, which was cloud security, is like anything, it really comes down to whether it was on-prem or in the cloud, that you make sure that you're enabling all of the security features that you need, the 2FA, having all those pieces. Because, I mean, you can get breached just as easy on-prem. Maybe it was harder to find you, but if somebody knows your email address, it's easy to do a lookup on MX Toolbox, find your IP address, and tunnel in. You just don't have to go to one place.
Well, also, I think, like, realistically, the chances of someone having, like, a 2-factor VPN account, or if you want to VPN into something, into like our network, and then 2-factoring into a VM itself, the chances of someone having both those on versus someone just having an email account with 2-factor on it is much smaller.
The hackers, they want the low-hanging fruit anyways. They don't want to have to sit and try, for 16 days to get in. They 100%. Want that quick 500, 5,000.
They're hoping for the business owner who went out and set up his Office 365 on his own. And didn't turn anything on.
That's why security is extremely important to small businesses, because they don't have the overarching someone that's telling them the right way to do things.
Right.
Well, I also love, the other side of it, we talked about this earlier, is the scalability. To instantly be able to scale something up.
Without downtime, or very, very minimal downtime. But you wanted to scale your server, you'd have to turn it off, turn off all the VMs. Now we're down.
Right.
How much does that cost? Or we got to do it after hours, or we got to get the RAM and put it in, make sure it all works. And you just go and click. I want more CPUs. I want more hard drive space.
I saw a demonstration with Azure one time where they were converting. I think they were just using like the Bible, right? It was a simple. Everybody knew what it was. They understood how big it was, how many words were in it, and they basically said, "This is how long it takes one computer to translate it from English to Spanish." Right? And it was like, days, months. And they were like, watch this. And they like literally had the sliding scale in Azure to go from a single CPU to infinite. Of course, it was Mark Rosanovich, and of course he is the founder of Azure. So he has like basically the ability to use the entire Azure platform. Right. And he's like, watch. And literally in like 10 seconds, it translated the Bible.
Right.
And it was just the show, the scalability. He basically use the entire Azure farm
for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then turn it back on.
Right, and if you look at, I think he had billing running too at the time, and it was like, the bill was like ridiculous. It was like several millions of dollars, but if you needed that kind of computing power, you could instantly have it to solve something.
Well, it's just so easy to change too. Like literally, it's just a couple click of buttons, and you can have a different size VM.
Yeah.
Like it's
not like all of a sudden we've tapped out the physical box, right?
There's no tapping.
Yeah,
there's
no tapping out.
There's not like,
There's not a ceiling.
No, not at least we haven't found it yet.
I really wish when we put that in 6 months ago, I would have thought it was going to need more hard drive space or resources. Brother, I'm going to have to go back to the well. Yeah, none of that.
Or where we have a partner where we planned for that growth and all that, and then they acquired somebody the same size, and they all wanted on this, and you're like, well, we got to buy all new now. They're like, why? And you're like, you're combining two companies together. And it's just not going to fit. We could just be like, whoop, you're done. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think our biggest problem with moving to the cloud half the time is just the speed of getting the data up there. The internet, we just talked about how it's getting faster and faster, right? But that's download speeds. Upload speeds are still not very quick.
Right.
And sometimes,
or they're very expensive.
Yeah, and sometimes getting data up to the cloud could take some time, but that stuff keeps getting
Once
better.
it's there,
it's
you're golden.
Yeah, it's just like anything. It is getting better. Like, I mean, doing a SharePoint migration like a few years ago was definitely much more of a pain than it is now. There's a lot more tools and resources you can use to make it a little bit easier.
Well, I mean, think about when we used to migrate email, right?
Oh,
it used to. Our entire office was everybody.
Okay, here's a USB stick.
Or here's your 5 users. Here's your 5 users.
We were
here's
like
your
remoting
5
in,
users.
flipping stuff, doing reverse PST syncs.
Right.
It was all hands on deck to migrate 15 users, and it was like just 2 days of just pure torture. Today we're
missing
like
emails.
Yeah. Today we have a tool. It's synchronizing cloud to cloud on the back end, doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Cuts
Cuts
over.
it over, and you're like, cool, it happened.
Yep.
I had to do a couple DNS entries, and that's about it.
Yeah, I did when I did that tenant to tenant a few weeks ago. Like I didn't have to make any DNS changes.
Yeah,
really.
just the tool does it all.
Yep.
I love that, and that's the cool thing is their tools have gotten better. You look at what Office 365 looked like 10 years ago, and what you have to. I mean, I remember having to run command line, stuff constantly to do things to mailboxes. I think the GUI has certainly caught up. There are times you still want to use, PowerShell and do stuff, but a lot of that's changed. The tools have caught up. They're better. They're continuing to grow. That's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it's a weird thing if I have to PowerShell into 365 anymore. I mean, there's a few things like here and there. Their exporting stuff's kind of still a little bit rocky, but yeah, it's not really that big of a deal.
I had a whole notebook of PowerShell command for Office 365 to do just basic tasks.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then, it's like you have to make the connection and doing all that stuff. It was just such a pain. And then it would do something and change it and it would break and you have to upgrade this and this, And so it's gotten much better. I mean, Azure originally it has gotten better as a management tool on how to use it. The training has certainly caught up. I mean, that's something different too is, we were training for on-prem devices before, right? Nowadays, we're asking these guys to take training on cloud.
Yep.
And some of that is awesome. Some of that is a problem because the cloud does change so fast. So it could have looked one way yesterday, and today the interface is completely changed and they move stuff on us.
Yeah, I think that's why I think Microsoft certs are only good for like a year or something. Because it's just constantly
changing.
Like, well, 2 years ago, it doesn't even mean anything anymore. So
True.
He's like, I'm not getting those.
it's kind of a waste.
Right.
But
and you look how fast the operating systems are changing themselves now too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if someone was starting off like, you're right out of college or whatever else, like if you're just now starting in IT, you really don't have much of a baseline of information. I would probably just honestly go right to cloud information more than
Absolutely.
anything.
I think we'd struggle to hire younger guys out of college who have experience installing on-prem stuff. I just don't think they understand how it works anymore, and maybe it's something that's lost a little. Maybe it's not needed anymore. But yeah, the market has certainly changed.
Agreed.
So we're definitely and it's going to continue to change. I joked not too long ago that there'll be data centers on Mars next, maybe the moon first, right? So we'll have moon computing next, and then we'll have Mars computing. So the market will change.
It'll take a little longer to get our stuff. That's for long storage.
That's cold storage.
That's what's called cold.
True cold storage.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, but I mean, and it'll always continue to change, and I'm excited about what we're seeing. Like we talked about, as Tuna, you mentioned this, Austin, I should say. Tuna is your nickname. Can't help but call you that.
The cat's out of the bag.
I made a mistake a couple podcasts ago, anyways. So, but Austin, like you mentioned, like people just starting their computers up and getting into the browser, right? And I think about how I use my own computer, right? I don't have any apps installed. I use everything in the cloud, right? So when I start up my machine, I literally click on Firefox and I click on Safari and my tabs come up. And my tabs are my applications.
Well, that's the funny thing is that almost everyone is working out of the cloud. They just don't know it.
True.
Like everyone is.
Right.
Another cool benefit too is a lot of these systems that are going cloud, and you open up a web browser, like you said, like you can have like a less powerful machine now. Like you can kind of go on the cheaper route of like just an 8 gigs of RAM instead of your 16, or like because your machine will still work. Like I try to limit any application I have open. I don't even use Outlook.
Right.
I use Outlook on the web. That's it.
Yeah, that's how I am.
But
I use Excel. I have Excel installed, but because some of my spreadsheets are larger, the cloud Excel is not quite there. And then the other applications I have installed locally are like art tools. I use Lightroom. I kind of need that locally to work on photos and stuff like that. But from a work standpoint, I don't use Outlook. I don't use PowerPoint local. I don't use Word local. If I have to install them, it's cool. I can do it on the fly if I needed it. But everything is right there in my tool set, and it opens up Outlook, it opens up my calendar, which is Outlook too, then SharePoint, which is all Office 365, and it has my OneDrive, then in SharePoint sites, and then I jump into our tool sets, and that's where I live.
I think what they've done with Teams is awesome too, like creating all those Teams channels where you can just have files and Teams just right there for you it's been interesting. Like I know a couple partners, like a SharePoint migration I'm doing currently, they're going pretty much the whole Teams channels routes, and it's interesting, like just super easy to share documents back and forth and chat about them. It's pretty cool. It's a cool integration.
It is. Teams is Microsoft's. Obviously, you think about what we had Skype and we have what was it before it was
Link.
Teams? Link, yeah, and then merging those two into what we have Teams today. And I think Teams came almost right at a great time when COVID hit. It started getting really good. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Zoom then took off. Everybody was using that to make calls. I mean, talk about cloud computing in its finest right there. Yep. Microsoft Teams quickly changed very fast, and there are so many features in it that it caught up to Zoom and probably has passed Zoom. And I had to get on Cisco's WebEx the other day, and it was like, for some meetings I was hosting, it was horrible.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, you guys got left behind.
Yeah, it's not good.
Microsoft, even Google Chat, and all those are much better. It is amazing what these companies have done, and that is all. I mean, think about the data being pushed from video standpoint, and all the cloud computing that's required to have that streaming everywhere. It's pretty impressive, and it's obviously changed our world. It's changed how we work. So the cloud definitely is an influence, and for small businesses to come back around to the beginning, if you're a small business owner and you're looking to start a business or to take your business to the next level, if you have I'd even say probably 75 employees, 50 employees, you really could not have any IT on-prem.
We see that a lot with a lot of our partners that are, I don't mean to say this wrong, but a lot of the younger generation small business, entrepreneurs that are starting their businesses. We just took on a couple of them, and they got people working all over the country.
Yep.
And they just work out of the cloud, the phones, the software, everything that they do. You can literally have a person working in anywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
The younger the company is,
Yeah.
definitely the younger the management team is, the more likely they are using all integrated cloud systems. And it makes them very fast to scale.
Yep.
Because as a business, we talk about being able to scale from the cloud, right? But as a business, because you're in the cloud, you can scale fast, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you can go, all of a sudden you bring on this one client and you need 50 more employees, you can quickly bring them on overnight, not be
There's no delay.
Yeah, I mean it's there, it's on. You have 50 new phone extensions, 50 new
email addresses.
It's not 6 weeks for a new server.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and you're not having to have office space because
Right.
everyone's working from home, so it's definitely changed the scalability, the quickness.
Yeah, the only thing
growth.
that really ever prohibits any of our partners from fully is the 75 and under small business platform is just what depending on their files.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's really the only thing that'll keep you stuck. But
file size and software.
Yeah.
The only two things that'll just
Yeah,
make
you get into a
that'll
company
make you-
who's using it's a
CAD
small
documents
CAD,
and
as I
stuff.
say, you get CAD drawings, you
Videos.
can't, you're not putting it in cloud. I mean, obviously there are programs out there like Box and stuff like that where they have unlimited storage, but you're talking like $60, $70 per month per user. And when
That's
you have,
cheaper to buy a server.
it's,
at that
yeah,
point.
when you have 100 employees,
Right, absolutely.
that's expensive. You're talking, what you would buy a server for 1 year.
You can buy a server every year.
Correct.
She'll save
yeah,
30.
thank you. That's what I'm
she'll
trying to
save
get to.
30 grand.
It's like
Right.
it could be 30 grand to buy the server right now and 30 grand for that subscription for 1 year, but that server is going to run for 5 years.
Right.
So you're saving definitely some money in the long run. But if you're a company where this is where the hybrid gets into it, and you get people to maybe understand this, like, well, let's move to SharePoint, and let's just start bringing our active files up there, right? Leave the legacy stuff behind, because I mean, I think how much data do you use daily? How many of your files are just sitting there?
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So why are we bringing up 10 terabytes worth of data?
And paying for it every day.
Right. When maybe we're only really using a couple hundred gigs. We move that up into SharePoint. It doesn't cost you anything because you already have that space allocated, and let's leave the legacy stuff behind. If you need it, it's still there, and you can buy a small server just to house it. Maybe you can move into a NAS
Correct.
solution, something even cheaper than buying, these massive
Just
servers.
to house your legacy
Yeah.
stuff, back it up,
Yep.
you'll be fine. Eventually that legacy stuff, it's called legacy for a reason.
Correct.
Right.
But it's hard for people to see that and then also take the time to truly move data into that, because everybody's like, I need everything, and you're like, you don't.
You don't really.
I'm
it's
looking
just a
at
comfort thing.
Your data is all time stamped, and you're only using 10% of it. I mean,
Very
if you have to
valid.
go back to this, it's still there,
Right.
Right.
but the rest of it's available to you anytime, anywhere,
Right.
any place.
Well, even like using that hybrid environment, it's going to be cheaper because if you can move what you can into the cloud. Like if you have file server, you go to SharePoint. Domain controller, you just go to Azure AD. But you have that one piece of software on a VM that has to stay local, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But you don't have to buy that big server anymore.
Right.
You can buy a small
Scaled
box
down
that's just-
server, right.
that'll just run that one piece of software.
Yep. Yeah, that might be some of the other side of it too, is just having a piece of software that you have no choice but to run on site. And sometimes you can run in cloud, but I mean, sometimes it's just easier to let it run, right? Sometimes you can move it to a PC.
Yeah.
Just
They've
back
done
up
that a lot.
Yeah, you back up the PC.
Right.
There's great backup tools for computers. Just let it run on something very cost effective. Get a laptop, put it in the corner. It's got a battery in it, so it's got battery backup.
Yep.
And it's just running something, and it's just used even maybe for a legacy application that you just need
Like old
because
QuickBooks or
yeah,
something.
something where you don't need it on a massive server. You're running QuickBooks in a cloud, but you didn't bring your old data with you, and you just need that laptop to run for 7 years, right? And then it can go away forever. So definitely, there's creative ways to be hybrid. There's creative ways to get your current data in the cloud to keep costs down. It's great to find a good managed service provider like us, right, that can think like that. It's not like, this is your only solution, you're going to cloud, I don't care how much it costs. Right? That's not the ideal solution. It is truly finding solutions for partners to work with that they have. Sometimes you have to force them to the cloud. Sometimes you have to force them here and there, but that's what we're here for. That's what our expertise are for, to help guide them, to help keep their costs down, to give them savings and give them reliability.
Yeah, the only forcing we do is when it comes to security. That's when
Well,
we're like,
yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
we're not
Right.
going to be nice.
Right.
It's for your own good.
Again, the good thing is all the PCI compliance and all the other,
Yep.
cyber insurance, all those are doing that for us today.
Yep.
Well, I feel like
we're not the bad guy anymore.
I feel like cloud and security, like from a customer or partner learning standpoint, is kind of similar. Of where obviously you want to increase your security after you get breached. That's a common thing for a partner. They get breached.
It's
like,
reactive,
right? But it can be the same thing for the cloud. Like, one of our partners' entire server went down, everything was down, and I was thinking, and he was thinking, like, man, if a domain controller and just phones were up, this situation would be 10 times better right now.
Yep.
It's very true. Just thinking about what does it take just to make sure we can run.
Yeah.
And those two, that's small. That's nothing to put in the cloud.
Nothing.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, that's what we're here for. That's what our partners come to us for. That's what they have our expertise are in.
Mm-hmm.
We can help leverage them, whether they're full cloud, they're hybrid, whether we want legacy pieces, and how do we get there, and how do we take them to the next level, and how do we help them grow their business so they can scale and they continue to be profitable.
Easily. Yep.
And that's a cloud.
The cloud.
And that's a wrap, right?
The cloud. The cloud.
I mean,
It's
the cloud.
a cumulus.
It is. I mean, it has definitely changed. It has changed computing forever.
Yep.
It has changed our markets forever. And you're going to be sitting here someday, tuning in, and you're going to be like, back when we used the cloud, I know now it's called the universe.
I know you're always like. You're always like giving me a hard time with all these like hard things you used to do, and I'm just like, I'm glad I wasn't doing it.
Yeah. We wish we didn't have to do them either.
Yeah.
Cool.
You guys have it so easy. Yeah. We had to lift servers. You guys don't have to do anything. The cloud is so light.
We had beepers.
Yeah, we had beepers. Yeah, things have definitely changed. So, well, I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in. Next time on episode 7, we're going to talk about data management, how we manage data, whether it's obviously in the cloud or on premise, or even just on mobile devices today. I mean, things have obviously, again, another market that has changed. Continue to follow us. Head over to MIS.tech/DIY to catch up on all the previous episodes. Obviously, if you have some kind of cool podcatcher, I'm sure you can catch it with that. Podcatcher.
Podcatcher.
We got blogs coming, checklists, all kinds of guides up there, so feel free to do that. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I'm sure that Tuna, you have all those. I know I don't have any of those. So
what are those?
I don't have Facebook.
I don't know.
That's
What are those?
people.
They're cloud things.
They're cloud things.
They're things in the cloud that we just don't. I don't use that
After
cloud
this,
stuff.
you tell me what Twitter is.
Twitter's the best.
Actually, what are we using Twitter for? Scratch Mastodon. Where's our Mastodon server?
No.
I mean, come on. That's it right now. Everybody's moving to Mastodon. Got to get our namespace. So, but thanks
MySpace.
again.
Did you promote our MySpace page?
Oh yes, MySpace.
Please like us on MySpace. We need more friends.
On MySpace. I mean,
We only got Tom right now.
I know
True.
what MySpace is.
It's only like us and one other guy. So if you guys could all come to MySpace, the cloud is growing, and because it's in the cloud, it'll never go away. So, thank you again.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.